The email that blew it all open. It started with a single email, one I was never supposed to see. I had just walked into my office late on a Friday evening, hoping to retrieve my forgotten laptop charger before the cleaners locked everything down. The open plan workspace was quiet, dimly lit, with only the hum of the server room and the occasional creak of the old HVAC system breaking the silence. I wasn't expecting to hear anything, let alone voices. But then I heard my name. Claire doesn't suspect a thing. I froze. The voice was unmistakable Grant's. My husband. My business partner. The man I co-founded Virion Labs with 7 years ago, back when we were two broke dreamers working out of a shared WeWork space, chasing the future of AI-driven fraud detection software. But this voice. This wasn't the soft-spoken man who'd kissed my forehead every morning for a decade. This was calculated, cold. I stepped back, careful not to let my heels echo on the polished concrete floor, and slipped into the shadows beside the printer room. Through the glass wall of the conference room, I could see him. Grant. In his usual charcoal gray blazer sleeves rolled up like always. He wasn't alone. Across from him sat a woman I didn't recognize, late 30s, sharp cheekbones, confidence dripping from every gesture. Her laptop screen glowed with a familiar dashboard, our company's back-end system. She's still logging in from her home network, Grant said. Nothing flagged her IP yet. We keep the automated alerts off one more week and then it's done. The codebase will be migrated and she'll be locked out before she even realizes we've sold it. I didn't breathe. Sold it. It was the core of Virion, a proprietary AI model I spent 3 years building from scratch. A system that had landed us government contracts, private equity attention, and a $20 million Series B round 6 months ago. The same system Grant had once called our child in a Forbes interview, and now he was selling it. Behind my stillness, 100 thoughts spun. Had he found a loophole in the licensing terms? Was he trying to cut me out of the company? What else had he done? My hand instinctively went for my phone, but it was in the car. Of course. I stepped back, slowly, heart thudding so loud I thought he might hear it through the glass. I turned the corner, grabbed my charger with shaking hands, and walked out of that office like I hadn't just witnessed the beginning of a betrayal. So calculated, so deliberate, it made every romantic betrayal in my past look like playground drama. The elevator felt like a coffin. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake beside Grant in our sleek condo overlooking the Chicago River, his breathing even like nothing had changed. But everything had. I stared at the ceiling, cold rage crawling up my spine. My mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it wasn't what it sounded like. But I knew better. Grant was always smooth, methodical. He didn't do offhand comments. Everything he said, everything he did was intentional. He was up to something that would end me. And the terrifying part, it was already in motion. Over the next few days, I played my role like nothing had changed. Every morning, I poured our coffee. Every evening, I asked how his day went. I nodded at his jokes, gave him space when he needed to take late meetings, and never once let on that I had seen the truth behind his eyes. But inside, I was unraveling. The night after I overheard him in the office, I stayed up alone on the couch laptop, open combing through every shared document, Slack history, and system log I had access to. Most of it looked normal. Clean. Too clean. Which was the problem. I was the CTO, yet, over the last 2 months, Grant had gradually requested more administrative access for himself, under the guise of needing to better understand our infrastructure. I'd thought nothing of it at the time. We were growing fast. The board liked it when the CEO looked hands-on. Now I saw it for what it was positioning. I opened our cloud security logs. Sure enough, 3 new user permissions had been created in the last month. One was under Grant's name, another under an alias I didn't recognize, Italan. The third was tied to a masked email address that bounced when I tried to trace it. and all three had full write access to our core model repository. I felt sick. I double-checked the latest pull requests. My name hadn't been included in code reviews in weeks. I'd built that model. My fingerprints were on every function, every neural weight, every adaptive logic layer. And now, I was being pushed out piece by piece. Still, I said nothing. I couldn't yet. Any confrontation would alert Grant that I knew, and that meant he'd cover his tracks. No. I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. Something that couldn't be erased with a keystroke. So I waited. And watched. He started coming home later. Always with a casual excuse, last-minute client call, the DevSec team ran over Jim's birthday drinks. Always delivered with a grin and a light kiss on the cheek. But I noticed the small tells. His laptop never left his bag anymore. His phone was always on silent screen down, unless he went into the other room. One night, I caught a glimpse of a message as he passed me a message from someone named Riva that read, "The timing is good. Once we go live, she's done." I snapped a photo when he turned away, just in case. That night, he crawled into bed beside me, completely unaware I was planning my own quiet war. A week later, something happened that confirmed everything. We'd received a routine audit notice from Valorium Capital, one of our Series B investors. Nothing unusual, they did quarterly check-ins. But when I tried logging into our investor dashboard to review the numbers, I was locked out. Not just that, my admin privileges had been revoked. Not downgraded, erased. I stared at the screen in disbelief, a chill washing over me. Grant had removed me from our own company's financial portal. I was done pretending. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I logged into our shared device with his thumbprint, something he never thought to remove, and searched for anything I could find. Emails, downloads, password logs, meeting invites. What I found chilled me. A folder tucked away on his drive called Final Phase. Inside, there were files, contracts, NDAs, letters of intent, all signed. He'd made a deal. A private asset sale of our company's core model to a firm called Morgan Flynn AI, a competitor we'd beaten in 2 major contracts last year. The deal was set to close in under 2 weeks. And the valuation, less than half our market estimate. If that sale went through and I was left off the paperwork, which I clearly was, I'd be legally cut out. No stock, no rights. Just a disappearing co-founder story that no one would ever question. Because Grant wasn't just selling our company behind my back. He was erasing me. That was the moment something broke. Not in a loud, destructive way, but in the quiet, lethal kind. The kind that comes when your soul says enough. I stood in the bathroom doorway as he stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming like the world was his. "Hey, babe," he said, running his hand through his damp hair. "You okay? You look tired." I smiled gently. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." He kissed my forehead. "Try not to worry so much. You're too smart for that." I nodded, and in my head, I whispered, "You have no idea how smart." The next morning, I called Elena. She wasn't just my lawyer, she was my old roommate from grad school. We'd shared everything, once ramen noodles, dreams of changing the world, and long nights spent decoding legal ethics over boxed wine. She went into corporate law. I built software. We hadn't talked in months, but when I said it's about Grant, her voice turned sharp. "Do you want this on or off the record?" she asked immediately. "Off for now. I'm just trying to understand what he's planning." I told her everything, what I'd overheard, the fake email accounts, the revoked access, the ghost contracts. I even forwarded her the photo of that message from Riva. Her silence on the other end of the line was heavy. "Elena, I'm here," she said finally, "and I believe you. But, Claire, if what you're saying is true, you don't have time to be careful anymore. You need to secure your rights immediately." "I know," I whispered. We spent the next 3 hours drafting a plan. Step 1, protect my ownership. My equity in Virion wasn't just emotional, it was hard legal ground, and I had signed contracts proving it. But if Grant pushed the deal through under the table, I'd be forced into a fight after the damage was done. So we moved quickly. That afternoon, Elena filed a temporary asset hold request on my behalf, citing breach of fiduciary duty. It wouldn't stop him forever, but it would delay any major transfers, especially if they involved IP. I also backed up every file I could touch: screenshots, emails, time-stamped logs, my own development notes for the model. I encrypted it all and uploaded it to a private server under Elena's firm. And still, I said nothing to Grant. Let him think I was blind. Let him believe I was tired, distracted, maybe even slipping. Meanwhile, I was meeting with a forensic IT consultant, a brilliant guy named Harris, who worked with whistleblowers in financial crimes. I handed him a copy of the folder I'd pulled from Grant's laptop. His eyes narrowed as he scrolled through. "You realize what this is, right?" he said. "This isn't just theft. If he finalized this deal without you given your title and intellectual ownership, it's full-on corporate sabotage." "Can you prove he tampered with the model?" Hari smirked. "I can prove he accessed it without your consent, and I can trace when the model was cloned. If he tried to modify the commit history, I'll find the fingerprints." I leaned back, heart pounding. I don't want revenge. I want the truth, and I want to make sure he doesn't bury me before I can expose him. Haris nodded. "Give me 5 days." Those 5 days were the longest of my life. At home, Grant acted as if everything was fine. He even suggested we take a weekend away, clear our heads, he said. "You've been so stressed lately." I stared at him across our kitchen island, the granite counter between us suddenly feeling like a chasm. "That sounds nice," I said. "Maybe next weekend." "Sure," he said, kissing my cheek. "You deserve a break." I nodded and smiled. But inside I was sharpening knives. 3 days later, Harris sent a message. "Found it. Grant cloned the model 6 weeks ago. Used a spoofed account tied to an offshore shell registered in Belize. Also found internal Slack messages between him and Riva discussing replacing the CTO quietly." Attached was a screenshot. "Once the paperwork's signed, Claire's just a ghost. The board won't risk litigation once the buyout is done." That did it. He wasn't just plotting behind my back. He was erasing my name from my own creation, from the company I'd poured everything into. He thought I'd disappear quietly. Too burned to fight. That night, I walked into the apartment, saw him on the couch, casually watching a Lakers game, sipping from the glass I'd bought him on our 5th anniversary. "Hey babe," he called. "Want to order Thai?" I stared at him, and I smiled. "Actually," I said softly, "I'm going out for dinner with an old friend." He looked up surprised. "This late?" I nodded, grabbing my coat. Just needed to breathe. He shrugged and went back to the game. That dinner was with Elena. In a quiet booth at a bar near the river, she slid a folder across the table. "We've got everything she said. Emails, data access logs, IP addresses, the contract between Virion and Morgan Flynn. Harris even found metadata in the PDF that proves Grant modified the original legal agreement to remove your name." I took a breath, my hand resting on the folder like it was a weapon. "What's our move?" Elena's eyes gleamed. "We don't sue yet. Not until he thinks he's won. You wait until the exact moment he serves you, then you flip the entire table." I stared out the window, watching the city lights reflect on the water, steady and calm. He wanted me silent. He wanted me gone. But I was still here. And I wasn't going anywhere. 3 days later, it happened. Grant came home early, dressed sharper than usual. No blazer, just the tailored white shirt he only wore for investor meetings and high-level calls. I knew the look. He was trying to control the narrative. "I want to talk," he said, placing a folder on the counter between us like it was nothing. Inside a formal request for voluntary resignation from Virion Labs, along with a severance offer that was frankly insulting. It claimed I had become erratic, disconnected from team goals, and no longer fit for the technical direction of the company. I stared at it, then back at him. And that's when I realized he truly thought I would cave. He mistook my silence for weakness, my patience for ignorance. He'd spent so long crafting this illusion of control, he didn't see what was already burning beneath him. I set the folder down, calm, measured. "Are you sure this is the route you want to take?" I asked. Grant chuckled like a man too drunk on his own story. Claire, come on. It doesn't have to get messy. This is just a clean way out. A clean way out, I repeated. Yes. You walk no press, no board drama. You get paid. We all move on. I let the words hang in the air for a moment. Then I reached for my phone. I'm going to do something now, I said softly. And I need you to remember this moment for the rest of your life. I tapped the screen and hit send. 30 seconds later, his own phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, froze. The subject line read, Urgent unauthorized transfer of proprietary model legal hold initiated. I watched as he opened it. Watched his face tighten, his jaw clench. Read the attached notice drafted by Elena and reviewed by our forensic expert. What the hell is this? He asked, voice suddenly flat. It's the beginning of the end, I said quietly. The original files, the modified agreements, the deleted messages, the server access trail. We have it all. He looked up, something dark flickering behind his eyes. You were spying on me. No, I said. I was protecting myself. He leaned back against the counter, the air between us turning cold. You don't know what you're doing, he said, tone low. You think the board's going to side with you? They want this deal. They've been begging for an exit. I smiled. You're right, I said. They do want an exit, just not with a lawsuit for corporate misconduct and fraud hanging over it. Not with headlines about a CEO manipulating his co-founder out of her equity. His face paled. And here's the twist, I added. They've already seen the files. Elena sent them 2 hours ago. You're meeting this afternoon. It's not about signing the deal. It's about explaining why you hid it from them. He stepped back stunned, and I stepped forward. You played a long game, Grant, but you forgot who I am. I built the code, I built the team, and while you were busy writing me out of my own story, I was rewriting the ending. Later that day at the emergency board meeting, I didn't have to say much. Elena walked in beside me, calm as ever, dropping the packet of evidence in front of every member at the table. Harris joined on video call, detailing the security violations with timestamps and access trails. When the chairwoman turned to Grant, he looked hollow. Rage simmered behind his eyes, but there was nowhere left to aim it. I didn't forge anything, he said, hands trembling. You didn't have to, Elena replied. You just erased my client's name and tried to sell her creation to the highest bidder. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. The chairwoman finally looked at me. We'll be suspending Grant's executive privileges immediately, she said, and reviewing this deal in full legal context. I nodded, lips pressed together. Grant turned toward me, his voice bitter. You think this means you've won? I didn't blink. No, Grant. This just means you've lost. 2 weeks later, Grant was gone. The board made it official he was removed from all operational duties pending full investigation. The sale he tried to orchestrate behind closed doors, terminated, and Virion Labs still mine. What surprised me most wasn't how quickly things fell apart for him. It was how quiet the fallout was. No fireworks, no front-page headlines, just a few industry blogs whispering about internal restructuring and leadership misalignment. Grant slipped out of the company the same way he tried to erase me quietly, as if he'd never mattered in the first place. Elena told me we had more than enough evidence to sue him for damages. And for a while I was tempted. I imagined watching him get dragged through court, having to explain himself to account for every lie, every betrayal. But in the end, I didn't need it. He had already lost what mattered most, his reputation. The network he spent years curating now saw him for what he was. VCs stopped returning his calls. Our developers who once looked up to him stopped saying his name entirely. One by one, doors closed behind him, and none opened back up. Meanwhile, I stayed. And I rebuilt. I didn't want Virion to just survive. I wanted it to evolve. I restructured our leadership, promoted from within, brought in advisors who valued transparency. We reworked our mission not just to detect fraud, but to defend integrity. It wasn't just code anymore. It was personal. One night, a few months later, I sat alone on my balcony overlooking the river. The skyline blinked steady in the distance, and the air was sharp with spring. I had a glass of red wine in one hand and my laptop in the other, reviewing the final draft of an op-ed I'd been asked to write lessons in founding and protecting what you build. In it, I wrote, "No one ever warns you that the people closest to your dreams can be the ones who steal them. That betrayal doesn't always come with screaming or slammed doors, but with quiet deletions, unread agreements, silence between sentences. But what you do next, that's where your story begins." I closed the laptop, gently setting it aside. My phone buzzed an unknown number. The message read, "You think it's over? It's not." I stared at it for half a second, and then I smiled. Blocked. No drama, no words, just silence. Because some people don't deserve your energy. Not your thoughts, not your rage, not even your attention. A few weeks later, I flew to Vancouver for a quiet tech summit. Elena came with me. We spoke on a panel about ethical AI, and afterward she raised a glass to me at dinner, her voice soft but proud. "To Claire," she said, "the woman who turned betrayal into blueprint." I laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in a long time. We clinked glasses. Later that night, I stood by the water hands in my coat pockets, the wind cool against my skin, and I realized I wasn't just free from Grant. I was free from the version of myself that tolerated the slow drip of disrespect. The one who rationalized red flags, gave too many second chances, and mistook silence for stability. I had become something else. Not harder, not colder, just clearer. Stronger not because I fought, but because I chose when to fight and when to walk away. People always ask me what I learned from it all. The truth. Trust is beautiful, but never blind. Kindness is strength, but so is discernment. And if someone tries to write you out of your own story, pick up the pen and start a new chapter. One that's yours, fully, fiercely, unapologetically.